In this video we'll discuss how you can add authentication to various methods in the API that you're defining. So you can see here we have a really simple API that exposes two methods, getCustomer and getData, and currently both of these methods are not authenticated. So you can see here that the little icon indicates that these are public methods, they're not authenticated. But let's say we would like to authenticate the getCustomer method. So in order to do that, we first need to turn on authentication for certain methods in this API. So we'll go ahead here and we'll require authentication, and when we click this button to define the authentication, we'll go here and we'll say add a method. So you can create multiple different authentication methods. So a named authentication method is just a name that you give to a series of properties. So I'll just call this auth1, and then you can see that to define this named authentication method auth1, we need to specify the name of an XBasic class that contains a method that will be used to perform the authentication. We can also specify that the authentication will be performed by some node function as well, but we'll just keep it simple and choose XBasic right now. And then we'll need to choose the name of the class that contains our authentication method. So at this point we've not yet defined the authentication method, so let's basically close this out and go and define a method that will perform this authentication. So we can create this method in any class. We can create a brand new class, or we can add this authentication method to this existing class that we have right now. So we'll go ahead and edit the class, and I'm going to just go here and type in a new method, so function authenticate, and this function must return a numeric value, which is an HTTP status code, so end function. So a status code of 200 is used for allowed, and a status code of 401 would be used for not allowed. So I'm going to go here and actually hard code in a status code of 401. So this is going to basically disallow the API call. So now we have authenticate equals 401. So we'll go ahead there and save that. Now we'll go back to defining our named authentication method. So we can go here and say that the class that contains the method is this class over there, and the method that we're going to use to authenticate this API calls is this authenticate method. So now that we've defined our named authentication, we can go over to this getCustomer method here, edit the properties of it and turn on authenticated, and then specify the name of the named authentication method to use. So we only have one, which is auth1, so we'll choose that method over there. Go ahead and click OK, and we can see now that the icon changes now to the lock. So let's go ahead now and save this and then do a test of this API in our browser. So we'll open up the tester, and we'll go over to the getCustomer method over there, and we'll try it out. So we'll go there now and hit the execute button. We need to type in a customer ID, so I'll just type in ALFKI and then hit the execute button. And we see now that the response code is 401 and that this API call here was not authorized. So what we've shown in this video is how you can add authentication to the API calls that you define when you're exposing methods in a REST API. Thank you very much for watching. In the previous video we showed how we hard-coded the authentication method to return a 401 status code which disallowed the API call. So let's go now and edit our authentication method and change it from a 401 to a 200, which would allow the API call to be made. So obviously in a real application you would have much more complex logic over here to decide whether or not to authenticate the API call. But in this simple example we're just going to hard code our response. So we'll go ahead there and now hit the save button, and now we'll go ahead and test the getCustomer endpoint. So we'll go there and type in the customer ID, and then go ahead and hit the execute button, and now you can see that we get a status code of 200 and the API call is allowed, and the API call returns some data. So using XBasic methods or node code that you create, you can easily write custom methods to authenticate each one of the methods exposed in your REST API. Thank you very much.